for community. Anything superfluous was left out. Going through Shas, it was a luxury. Learning Kabbalah was a luxury. You had to know Hilchas, Shabbos, Hilchas Teres Mishpachas, Hilchas Kashrus, Hilchas, Mamanos, Batinim, everything that we need to function on a daily basis. So as a result of that, it was like taking an antibiotic. You're not supposed to really take them, just generally, but if a person needs them, they get sick, they need them, they take them, right? So a person might say, well, if it helped me get better, why not keep taking it so I won't get sick? Of course, that's not the way it works. It doesn't work that way, but that's what we did. The refuah that worked, and we were successful quite miraculously. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here right now quite comfortably as Jews, Baruch Hashem, it's just phenomenal miracles because it worked. Because the plan that they had, that the Gedolim came up with to rebuild the Jewish people in a very short period of time, Lakewood, Gateshead, all the different yeshivas that were in Yerushalayim, the Mir Panovich, all of that was rebuilding the Jewish people. It worked. They created all kinds of leaders overnight, a very short period of time. But once we did that and we were rebuilt, we needed to go back to the way things used to be. And this has been happening slowly, gradually, as Akash Baruch Hu allows it to happen. I remember that, 30, 40 years ago, I mentioned the word Zohar in a drash, at least in the Litvisher world, was unheard of. If you did that, people started to become suspect that maybe you're involved in things you shouldn't be involved with. Today, people quote the Zohar all the time. They quote the Arizal, and it comes up a lot. And a lot of Kabbalah has become making its way back into mainstream, Torah Judaism. We'll talk about the history a little bit more, going back even further, B'ezras Hashem. But that's just a hakdama, just an introduction to how we can get to a situation today that's going to be the exact opposite of what we're about to read. So I'm going to start with the first source right now. It's actually taken from the Gra and the Ramchal. The sefer that I came across these, some of them I saw before that in the Zohar itself, or others for him that come up. But the one sefer that I've been using a lot lately is called Achus Kereshis, and it's a wonderful sefer because someone's done all the work for us. They collected the Ramchal and the Gra on Galus, on redemption, what the paradigms and the prototypes and the information and the insights that we need to know to navigate the end of days. So this comes from there, and it's quoting actually the Zohar, and it says the following thing. Source number 1. Immediately after, it says, and God said, right? So he explains, in the beginning, it speaks about exile. That is null and void. The first verse says, Bereshis barakim hashamayim v'ha'aretz. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. Then the next verse says, V'aretz haisa tov avohu, v'choshech al pnei tehom, v'ruach elokim merchepes al pnei mayim. Most people are not aware of the fact that that second pasuk doesn't sound so meaningful, except for the fact that it's like the same way a person wants to bake a cake, they make a mess first. You get the flour, the eggs, the counter's a mess, the bowl's a mess. Eventually, you'll bake a cake, and the cake will come out, it'll look beautiful, and then you clean it up, and you eat it for Shabbos, and it's wonderful. But everybody makes a mess. When you make something, you make a mess. When God was making creation, he also made a mess. And that's the tohu, that's the null and the void. And the choshech al pnei tehom, very, sounds mystical, Kabbalistic, but whatever. And then ruach elokim merchepes al pnei mayim, that God's like hovering above, so to speak, the kisei kavod, because he's not going to start making creation, he's going to start from somewhere. And then we move on to the next pasuk where it seems to be all the excitement. God said, let there be light, and there was light, and the rest comes creation after that. But the second pasuk just skipped over very quickly. That second verse is a summary of 6,000 years of history. All of history is diluted in that one short little verse. Because the Medrash says that Tohu zu galus Bavel. That's the Babylonian exile. We just skipped from the beginning of from Bereshis Valakim Hashemayim v'ha'aretz all the way to 423 BCE, 3338 in the Jewish calendar, the Jewish timeline. 3,000 years from the first pasuk already. We're talking about galus Bavel, and then Vahu. Zugalis Medai. That's the median exile. Because as we know in 3390, Cyrus, who was a Mede, conquered Babylon, which was Nebuchadnezzar's empire, and took over the Jewish people. The exile didn't, we didn't change it all. Just we changed leaders, or that we became new owners, and that continued for the next 18 years until the story of Mordechai and Esther and Haman, and that was Purim. And then the Medrash says Choshech zu galus Yavan. That's the Greek exile. Well, that's by Sheni already. That's way in the future. We're past Bayis Rishon. We've already built by Sheni, and now we're already in the time of the Greeks. Shimon Shetach, Shimon Tzadi. It's in the future now, and that lasts 180 years. And all Pnei to home. That's the Roman exile. Why is it called? Tom means deep. Well, we know why it's called that, because when Yaakov Avinu had his dream of the ladder, we know that the angels, they climbed the ladder and they came back down again. So the first angel climbed 52 rungs because that's how long Galus Bavel is going to last. And the second angel climbed 18 rungs, that's Galus Medai. And the third angel climbed 180 rungs, and that's Galus Yavan. And the last one kept going up and going up and going up and going up, because that's the Roman exile that lasts for 2,000 years altogether until it comes to a close. From the time that Pompey conquered Yerushalayim in 63 BCE until 1938 in Kristallnacht. That's Galus Edom. That's the official ending of Galus Europe and Galus Edom. After that, there comes the Holocaust. It's just a continuation of that. It's the transition, which is why we go to Eretz Yisrael after that. But then comes Galus Yishmael, which is a whole different thing, not alluded in the pasuk per se. It actually is a transition, also a part of the transition. And then Ruach Elokim Merchepes Al Pnei Mayim, says the Medrash, that's Ruach Mashiach. That's the Ruach Mashiach. So you have in the second pasuk all of history right there. That's what it says. So that's what it's talking about over here. Then it says, "Let there be light." The third pasuk, right? Yom Elokim Yehi Or, Veyehi Or. Let there be light. So it says the Zohar, that is that there should be redemption of the Jewish people by way of the secrets, by way of Sod, of Kabbalah. How do they get that? Well, first of all, we know that the light represents, that the dark represents exile and the light represents Gula, because we know that from Yaakov Avinu. He fought with the angel, the Sar Shel Esav, which is the last exile, right, for the whole night. And then in the morning, when the morning rose, that was the Gula. The Malach had to go back to Shemaim to sing praise to Kosh Baruch Hu. But Chazal explained to us that whole fight the entire night was about exile, surviving exile, and then finally in the light next morning, that's the Gula. That's what Chazal's. So it's right. But how do we get that? How do we get that the Gula depends upon the secrets of Torah? Says a Zohar, because the word Or, which means light, and of course light is Torah, but the word Or itself is spelled Aleph Vav Reish, which has a gematria of 207, which are the letters Reish Zayin, which spelled the word Raz, and Raz means secrets. So, therefore, it will be through the secrets of Torah that they will be redeemed. As they say, this is the Spirit of God, right, which is the Eitz HaChaim, right, the secrets of Torah, which is Kabbalah. Since he mentions the point, it's worth bringing out. I mean, for the longest time, I always thought that Eitz HaChaim was all of Torah, and Eitz HaTas Tov Ra is only secular knowledge. The knowledge of the world, the how, right? Eitz HaTas Tov, the knowledge of good and evil is about about the physical world we live in. So it's not, it's not evil or good, it's neutral. What we do with it determines the evil or goodness of something. A gun is neutral. If you shoot a bad guy, you're a good person. You shoot a good guy, you're a bad person. But the gun itself is not good or evil. The tree itself could not be good or evil. Good or evil is an evaluation of a choice. It's either a moral thing or immoral. Good and evil is tied to morality. The tree itself cannot be moral or immoral or amoral. Only people can be through their choices. So the Eitz HaTas Tov Ra is really quite neutral, but it's associated with the potential for either good or evil. So it turns out the Chazal explained that that's also Gemara. Everything short of Torah falls under the category of the Eitz HaTas Tov Ra because of the fact that it deals with Tumah v'Tahara, right? Purity, impurity, good and evil, light and dark. Anything that has both sides associated with it by definition is part of the Yetzer Hara, but not Kabbalah. Kabbalah does not deal with evil. The root of it maybe talks about where it originates from, what leads to it, but doesn't talk about it at all, doesn't get involved whatsoever. It's 100% tov, it's 100% good. Putting it in another perspective, there are 5 levels of consciousness, 5 worlds we call them. They correspond to the 5 levels of soul, right? The lowest level, the one that we live in, is called the Sia, from the word la'asot, to do things, because it's a world of action. And it's called the world of action. It corresponds to the nefesh, the least holy level of soul that we share with animals. So therefore it's also called nefesh behemoth. It's called the animal soul because it's what keeps our bodies moving. You can have a nefesh and be a Russia, God forbid, because it's like the engine inside the car. Then one level up is called Yetzira, which is a level of formation, meaning it's really yesh miyesh, taking something that was existing and then using and then creating something from it. That's the next level, corresponds to the level of ruach. And level of ruach and soul is a higher level. It's very high. You start on that level, you start to become pretty righteous already. Why? Because in the level of Asiya, the world is, the majority is evil, and the miut, the minority, is good. On this level, take a look at the world around you. It's clear. If people want to know why the world is filled, people ask, why is the world filled with so much evil? Because that is Asiya. That's the level that we're living on. We're down amongst the klippas, down amongst the sources of evil. That's the nature of this level of existence. The level up, ruach, is 50-50. It's balanced between good and evil. It's still evil, but it's almost overpowered by the good. At least it's balanced. It's Adam Rishon before the Chet. As the Ramchal points out, before the Chet, he was perfectly balanced. And then above that, you have Bria. And Bria is already Rov Tov, majority good, and Miut Ra. It's the opposite of the lowest level. It's very hard to do an Avera on the level of Bria. And whatever Avera you do is going to be minor compared to what happens down, except it has more impact. That's a different story, different discussion. And then you get to Atzilus, which corresponds to the level of Chaya, which is a completely spiritual realm. It has no evil, cannot get in there whatsoever. There's no evil in Atzilus whatsoever. Completely tov. That's the level of Kabbalah. Because as we know, these 4 levels also correspond to 4 levels of learning Torah, we would call Pardes. Pardes means an orchard, but it stands for Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. Pshat is the lowest level of Asiya. Chumash, learning a pasuk on a simple, understanding. One level up is already Mishnah, it's the oral law, and then you go to the level beyond that, which is exegesis, which is elucidation, and the Gemara and Medrash, things you can't get from hints. They have to be part of a tradition, or you have to use the 13 exegetical principles that we bring down every morning davening, right? And the level above that corresponds to Sod, which is Kabbalah. So off the bat, you see how Kabbalah is the Yetzer Chaim, is the level of Atzilus, level of completely good. That's going to be very important. We'll see shortly why that makes a huge difference. Not just, spoiler, right? That basically it's the level underneath that, all 3 levels underneath that, because they're on the level of the Eitz Das Tov Ra, that you have to go through Chevlei Mashiach. The Zohar is going to say, anybody who's only on the level of the Eitz Das Tov Ra will have to go through Chevlei Mashiach. Well, to see why it's so important, but that's the way it works. But anyone who's on the level of Eitz Chaim, the level of Sod, no Chevlei Mashiach, no need for it. What are we talking about? It's like right there, end of conversation. We're going to go further in a second to see more of this, but right there is like, it's like in coronavirus, right? When it's rampant and going, people were running around giving out masks, and we had shots and all kinds of precautions, and we had rules about how many people could be at the same time. We didn't say, by the way, this is a good thing to do. You might, if you want to avoid getting sick and maybe even dying, right? Try this.